Well, the world is on fire as it has been for, I guess, since Donald Trump left office. And the nations of the world, the aggressors of the world, realized that they could take liberties. Russia invaded Ukraine. The Gaza-based Hamas attacked Israel, as has, in a smaller scale, Hezbollah and Iran. China is eyeing Taiwan and other countries, including the Philippines, Japan, and Korea. But the one that I am worried will turn into a larger conflagration, more even than the Russia-Ukraine war, is the Middle East. You have massive American aircraft carriers there, I think, to tamp down that possibility, but you have rogue forces like Hamas and Hezbollah terrorist groups that are not attached to the country. The Russians would be tempered by mutually assured destruction, let's say, but that's not something that's a deterrent to the death cult of Hamas or Hezbollah. It's a very interesting and very dangerous situation, and I think we need a bit of an update. And joining us now to talk about that is a man who studies the Middle East region very closely. It's in his title. I'm talking about Dr. Daniel Pipes, who is the president of the Middle East Forum. He joins us now via Skype. Dr. Pipes, great to see you again.
Great to see you, Ezra.
You know, there is absolutely a hot war going on between Russia and Ukraine, but I'm of the belief that it is unlikely to engulf the world. I think even though NATO is involved, they're being careful to keep it in the theater. But I am worried about the Middle East, partly because I believe that the United States under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are frankly passive-aggressive towards Israel and sympathetic to Iran. Can you give me a sense of what's going on in the Middle East? Help me out, because your sources and your understanding of that region is far deeper than mine. Is the world at risk of a larger war in the Middle East?
The Iranians are disruptive. The Iranian regime wishes to change the world order, not just the Middle Eastern one. And it has been going about this systematically for now 45 years, with limited resources, but with a certain cleverness. We can see at present, for example, the Houthis disrupting trade in the Red Sea, Hezbollah dominating in Lebanon, other Iranian allies and proxies, agents, very powerful in Syria and Iraq, also in Gaza, in the West Bank. So the Iranians are on the warpath. They have been so for a long time. They have problems. The regime is deeply unpopular at home. There could be, at any moment, a conflagration which leads to its overthrow. And yet, at the same time, it is building nuclear weapons. It is in increasingly close ties with Russia and China. So it's volatile, it's dangerous, but I'm probably not inclined to say that it's World War III potential. As we've seen in the last few weeks, the Iranians have been careful about responding to presumably the Israeli execution of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran on July 31st. They have been very competent at sabotage and low-intensity conflict. They're not so good at direct conventional warfare, and they've been cautious about engaging in that with Israel, much less the United States. So it's dangerous, but I don't know that it's more dangerous than Ukraine or Taiwan.
You know, you mentioned the assassination of the leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, who is typically based, if I'm not mistaken, he was based in Qatar. He was assassinated in Tehran. So that's quite a bold move, if it indeed was the Israelis, who I'm sure it was. Typically, Iran strikes back in some ways. In some way, when Donald Trump eliminated a senior military commander named Soleimani, the Iranians fired back, but it felt like it was sort of a show for domestic consumption. Iran has to sort of show its people, I think, that it has some self-respect and won't accept an assassination of an ally on their own turf. I don't think that's come yet, or maybe it has in the form of a suicide bombing in Tel Aviv the other day. But do you feel like another shoe is about to drop? I noticed a few weeks ago a whole bunch of Western airlines canceled their commercially scheduled flights to Israel. It felt like the region was battening down the hatches for war. Is Iran going to punch back for that assassination, do you think?
Well, in one way, the anticipation, the fear in Israel of such a response is in itself the punishment. But it is 3 weeks, and there has been no striking, large scale retaliation by the mullahs in Tehran. I'm inclined to think the likelihood declines as time goes by. The Iranian regime itself has said that it depends on an agreement in Gaza. If there is an agreement, they won't respond. If there isn't, they will. It doesn't look like there's an agreement. It doesn't look like Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas in Gaza, wants such an agreement. So I love predicting, but this is a tough one. If I had to bet, I'd say probably not a major Iranian retaliation.
Israel typically has short wars. One of them famously called the 6-Day War because it was 6 days. Even its more difficult wars are typically measured in weeks. This war against Hamas in Gaza is coming up on a full year. And Gaza is geographically a small place. Now, obviously, it's very challenging because it's completely an urban environment. It's underground tunnels. And the main problem, I think, for Israel is the PR problem of the inevitable casualties of a civilian population that is being used as human shields. But that said, I think we have to note that Israel perhaps could have done this months ago were it not being constantly restrained by the United States demanding a ceasefire, demanding a halt. I think that the fact that Israel has allowed this to drag on has become part of the problem. It has emboldened not just Hamas in Gaza, but it's emboldened anti-Semites around the world. If they were to snuff out Hamas totally, like the Red Army snuffed out Berlin under Hitler, if they had that bunker moment where, like, Hitler killed himself, if Sinwar were to die in Gaza, I think that would deflate these folks who are hoping against hope that this will be a Palestinian uprising that'll lead to the destruction of Israel. And I think it would deflate some of the anti-Semitism around the world. I actually think that Israel's slow pace, which I attribute to the Americans, has been their worst strategic error so far. What do you think?
As the author of the recently published book, Israel Victory, I could hardly agree with you more that the slow pace has been a very great error. However, I do disagree with you, Israel, on the cause of that. You're blaming the Americans. And there's a tendency for friends of Israel to blame the Americans or other allies of Israel for the problems, for the mistakes of Israel. I don't agree. I think the Israelis make their own mistakes. And here, to give you the full picture, the Israelis came up with the Oslo Accords of 1993. The Israelis came up with the retreat from Gaza, the withdrawal from Gaza in 2005. The Israelis came up with the idea of holding elections in 2007. The Israelis permitted the border between Egypt and Gaza to leave their control. The Israelis permitted 15 years of buildup in Gaza. The Israelis have been incompetent, not the Americans. The Israelis need to take the blame for this.
Well, that is a very persuasive point. Every one of those things, I can imagine there was some clever 3D chess argument for why it made sense to allow this or that, but every single one of those things you've described has come back to bite them. That said, I don't even know who's... Go ahead.
Could I just put it in a larger context? I think the Israeli security establishment has been brilliant when it comes to states, be it the Arab states, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, the 3 countries defeated in the 6-Day War, or Iran, or other states, Iraq, Sudan, Libya. but it has been pretty much incompetent when it comes to the Palestinians or other sub-state actors like Hezbollah. It has allowed 100, 200,000 missiles and rockets to go to Hezbollah in Lebanon. It allowed it. It saw these weapons enter. So the vaunted Israeli security establishment deserves its high reputation when it comes to Entebbe, when it comes to the Six-Day War, when it comes to dealing with foreign governments. It has not done well when it comes to the Palestinians.